Darryl. It's great to see you again. I'm looking forward to getting all caught up on payment declines and the impact on subscribers, churn, lifetime value of that customer relationship. So thanks for making the time.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Nice to see you again.
It's been quite a year, Darryl. I can say that certainly 2022 is not the year that I think everybody thought it would be.
Mhm. Yeah, we've been hearing a lot of rumblings out there of a potential recession, and I think that unfortunately, these things become like a self-fulfilling
Yeah, they
prophecy.
do. Unfortunately, I would agree with you. The
Mhm.
last time we chatted, speaking about payment declines and subscribers, 27% of subscribers had terminated their subscriptions as a result of a payment decline. Now,
Mhm.
that was a couple of months ago. Catch us up. Is that still the same sort of problem as it was when last we chatted?
Yeah, in fact, across our portfolio of customers, we have several, multi-billion dollar publicly traded customers, as well as more mid-market and even some SMB. So a pretty good swath of customers on our rails that we see. It's a little bit lumpy right now. We're
Mhm.
definitely seeing some customers that are really struggling. They've seen a significant degradation in approval rates in the last little bit. Others don't seem to be
Hmm.
struggling as much, but across the board, what we're hearing from our customers is that acquisition is getting tougher.
Sure.
And we're seeing more and more of our customers shifting their priorities. We were talking about how sometimes a recession can almost become like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I can
Mhm.
tell you in some of our larger customers, we're already seeing that shift where
Mhm.
anything that's considered discretionary
Sure.
is kind of getting kicked to the curb. Marketing budgets are kind of pulling in as a reaction to what they see as a more difficult market. And
Mhm.
anything that's directly accretive to the bottom line or helps them retain more customers is getting
Sure.
more and more focus and more priority, which obviously makes me happy with what I do for a living. But at a broader, more holistic level, as I have concern for what's going to be happening in the economy, it's definitely a struggle for a good chunk of merchants out there.
What would you attribute the approval rates being what you would describe as erratic and perhaps more, I guess, less forgiving than they once were? Is it because of the economic times?
I think that's certainly a driver of it. We monitor, for example, reason codes on failed
Mhm.
payments. What we're finding is that insufficient funds seems to be staying pretty stable and static as a cohort of total declines.
Mhm.
So when total
So
declines are
it's, yeah,
going up,
so it's not that. It's
yeah,
not that.
it's not just that. There are more NSFs, right? For
Mhm.
merchants that are struggling with insufficient funds, they are seeing, they're seeing that it's roughly the same ratio of total declines. So total declines is going up. NSFs as a cohort of the declines seems to be staying fairly stable. I
Mhm.
think that there's also a movement right now, unfortunately, on the part of a lot of the issuing banks to be a little bit more conservative as well in their
Mhm.
fraud systems. So we're seeing an increase in false declines as well, unfortunately.
Right, because of the fear of fraud.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say they want to protect their own P&L. They want to protect their own balance sheet. And so they're more sensitive to anything that could be a detriment to their own business on the issuing
Mhm.
side. And so the default sort of response is to kind of ratchet up the systems on their side.
You talk about the economic times and the self-fulfilling prophecy and consumers kind of re-examining what they want to spend their money on and why. And I recall that one of the statistics that we found so compelling, the last bit of research that we did, was the effect of a payment decline on those consumers who were kind of already on the fence. And
Hmm.
what we discovered was that, obviously it depends on what is it and are there comparable substitutes that I can, leave one and go to another. But in specific, generational cohorts, there was no forgiving. It was like, I'm done with you. I'm not coming back. It's almost like an insult
Hmm.
to that consumer. At least that's how it was regarded. So
Hmm.
there does seem to be, particularly in an economic environment where people are already sensitive, that managing payment declines is not only important, but it's a really good way to avoid losing a customer who just needs a reason to take it off their balance sheet.
Yeah, it wasn't that fascinating too,
Mhm.
those learnings. I'm going to be a bit provocative here for a minute. I'd say there are really only three things that can give you an unassailable lead in the marketplace. How you sell, which is all about how you outthink the marketplace.
Mhm.
How well you perform and deliver on your promise, which is all about whether people will stick with you and whether they want to refer people to you, and how well you collect the money. And everything else is noise. How well you sell, how well you deliver the value, how well you collect the money. Business is fundamentally a relationship between delivering value and collecting the money.
Mhm.
How well you sell is giving you the license to do it with a customer. But
Yep.
you get those things right and you get an unassailable lead in the marketplace. I mean, we just happen to be obsessed with the how you collect the money part of that
Mhm.
equation. And that's
Mhm.
one of the reasons why you and I both get so excited about seeing those tangible results from the study, because it was validation that yes, this does need more focus.
Mhm.
Too many merchants are just focused on, well, we have to sell really well and selling and marketing really well, and we have to do a really good job of customer service and the quality of the product and delivering well. And there is this third component that is a significant driver of churn. And I was just on a call a couple of days ago with a large publicly traded wireless carrier that would be a household name. And one of the people there said to me, we definitely have problems with churn, but we also with failed payments, but we also know that we are, if somebody has to choose between paying their mortgage or paying their cell phone bill, they're going to pay their cell phone bill because we're really a
Oh,
necessity. So why do we need to
interesting.
focus on churn?
Interesting.
Failed
That's
payments.
fascinating to me. I mean, data shows, our data shows that people at the top of the list is their mobile phone bill. So I get that,
Mhm.
but your point
But
about
my yeah,
collecting money. Yeah,
my retort to that, Karen, was like, why would you needlessly create an opportunity for churn?
right.
Because
Exactly.
even when it comes to wireless services, there's 100 of them
Yeah,
in
it's
America that you
competitive
can
market.
choose from. So yeah, I need a cell phone, but do I need it from you? And
Hmm.
why? And are you doing unnecessary damage to your brand?
Hmm.
Again, why are you needlessly creating an opportunity for churn? It's this, you've created a needless moment of truth in the relationship with the customers to say, why do I want to stay with your brand? Maybe I'm going to get a better experience going with a different brand. And I think that's part of what was captured in that report that we looked at together,
Hmm.
is that it almost seems odd. It isn't odd when you really think about the psychology of human beings, but when you tell a customer, when you notify a customer in writing or by phone or a text or whatever, that there's been a failed payment and it's their fault and it's on them to go fix it, it's deeply emotional. It's
It is.
oddly
It
emotional,
is.
right? Sending a message that, wait, I'm not credit worthy. I
Right.
mean, my wife just went through this the other day where she went to a merchant and the tap function on their terminal was broken. But it didn't tell her that there was a problem with tap. It just said the payment was declined. And the response and the attitude that she got, and she was deeply embarrassed and
Sure,
mortified.
of
She's
course.
calling
Yep.
me up, and I'm like, I'm sorry, sweetie. There's lots of room ready on that card. And she had forgotten her wallet. She only had her tap and had to drive all the way down there and,
Oh,
put the card in, and immediately it worked. And she left with all of her groceries and goods. But the odd thing was she kept saying to me over and over again, I just don't understand. Like, why didn't it just say that, the tap wasn't working, that there was a technical problem? Why did the terminal keep saying that I was declined? And I have to stand there and it's
right,
embarrassing.
right, right. It's horrible. That's horrible. But that is enough um, to eliminate that customer relationship. I mean, it will just,
Well,
you
how
know,
do you think she feels about going back to that store in the
probably
future?
won't. She probably won't.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the opportunity. This is the
Mhm.
challenge and the opportunity. And again, there's just not enough focus on this right now in the market. And I think it's more critical than ever before that merchants really understand that this isn't about a transaction,
Right.
right? This is about a relationship
Hmm.
with a customer. And
Hmm.
you have to get this right in order to protect the relationship. The way you handle this critical moment of truth that's been artificially, needlessly inserted into your relationship with your customer is going to directly dictate how they feel about your brand in the future. And it can have all kinds of downstream benefits that either put you on a beautiful trajectory to this unassailable lead that we see for merchants who get this right, or one that's really heading into some difficult times.
Darryl, it sounds like they understand that there's a problem.
Mm.
Um, so, understanding that there's a problem is the first part of, that's the big step to solving for it. But, the three things that you pointed out that you said were provocative, they don't sound all that provocative to me. So
Mm.
why is collecting the money so provocative? I mean, CFOs and payments guys are all over that, like, collect the money. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, it's because the problem is really infrastructural, right?
Mhm.
The common thought process, even for large merchants, tends to be, I'm just going to go get a relationship with a payment processor. I'm going to negotiate hard on price so I get it for as cheaply as possible. And then I'm just going to give it to my IT department to go integrate the APIs and the gateways and make it happen. And then I'm done. I'm one and done. And they don't think of this as being something that needs to be managed, right?
Mhm.
That's why we see the emergence of this category of payments
Mhm.
authorization management. It's because there's something that needs to be managed there. It's not just a one and done infrastructural play where you just choose a merchant based on a merchant processor based on pricing and connect to their APIs and you're done. There's a lot of downstream consequences hidden inside of this on
Mhm.
how for example, we talked about this once before, but I think it bears repeating. One of the early pieces of data we saw back in 2012 is one of the largest issuers in America. All things being equal, if you were to process your payments at 2 a.m. versus 2 p.m., your decline rates would be double.
Wow.
That didn't mean that your decline rates would be, 100%, but they were significantly higher. If they were going to be 3-4% in the middle of the day, they'd be 6-7-8%
Mhm.
running through at 2 a.m. Why? Somebody in their infinite wisdom decided that if a transaction is card not present and it's running through in the middle of the night, even if it's a recurring subscription, it's more likely to be fraud. And yet within a merchant, you have these IT people who are saying, well, I want to batch all my transactions at times when the servers are quiet and not under
Right.
stress. So let's run
Right.
them through in the middle of the night. So
Right.
again, they might understand that there's a problem here, but not understanding the drivers into it
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
what's leading to inefficient decisions that are exacerbating the problem dramatically.
So people are thinking of this as a technology issue, not as a relationship issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Needs to be a relationship issue. So how does one make this a relationship driver, if in fact, what you describe is the reality at most of these large merchants?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, like you said, it starts with awareness, right? Once you
Mhm.
understand that this is not just a simple thing that you delegate out to your IT team, you really need to bring in business stakeholders from different divisions. You need finance involved, you need operations involved, you need IT involved, you need to get the right people around the room to sit down and actually start to measure what's actually going on here. Well, how much are we actually losing of our churn? A question as simple as, of our churn, how much of it is voluntary versus involuntary? How
Mhm.
much of it is passive versus active? Just
Mhm.
that alone can be very telling because,
Mhm.
again, we've seen in some of the studies that we've done together, 48% of all churn for average merchants in America comes from failed payments.
Payments, yep.
So half of your churn, right? And for companies with really great brand recognition, that number is higher. The voluntary churn tends to be lower. And even if
Yep.
their overall churn is lower, the proportion of it that is from involuntary is much higher, right? The passive churn. So they need to start measuring a little bit more accurately, a little bit more closely. And once you understand the quantity of the initial failed payment, then you have to start asking the question, well, what's the downstream lifetime value effect on this? Because again, it's not just that one transaction, it's a relationship with a customer that's been needlessly ended. And you might end up with as much as 13 months if you're doing monthly recurring billing, or many years if you're doing
Mhm.
annual billing,
Yep.
more revenue from this customer. All of that is being interrupted here.
Mhm.
Then once you're able to properly quantify it and model it out, you can start to say, okay, what's the best solution here? Right? What's the right solution to manage this? Where can I find best of breed technology to come in and help? And what are the different vendors and relationships, things I can
Mhm.
do internally? But I feel like it really starts with the
Mhm.
measuring and really understanding a little bit better. Because you're right, people understand that there's a problem with their failed payments, but I feel like it's too superficial. And if they just
Mhm.
bring those different departments and stakeholders together and start to really calculate out the lifetime value of it, then they'll have the data and the motivation, the desire to go and fix it. And it'll be transformational to the business. We've
Yep.
seen.
Yep. We need new metrics. We need a new way to think about the lifetime value of a customer, a subscription customer, and manage against those KPIs as opposed to just looking at these discrete churn
Mhm.
numbers declines and thinking that I'll just keep adding more to the funnel because to your earlier point, it's really expensive to acquire customers. And it's getting more expensive to acquire customers. And it's getting a whole lot more competitive too.
Yeah, I mean, like when you think about the gross margin on recovering a customer that's already engaged with you,
Hmm.
marketing and sales has already done their job, and this customer has decided that they want your brand, and they've given you their credit card, and they signed up. Like the profitability on recovering that customer compared to going out and
Enormous. It's
trying to
enormous.
acquire a new customer with which
Yep.
to replace them. I mean, it's night and day the difference between the two. So especially if we are heading into some tougher times
Yeah.
economically, I think that it's critically important that businesses be more focused on optimization, on as close to 100% efficiency as possible to make sure that they don't have a leaky bucket and that they're retaining as many of these customers as they possibly can.
So it sounds like investing in the third thing, how you collect the money, is really, really important because there's a lot that goes into selling. There's a lot that goes into product development because it is the product that people are buying. And,
Mhm.
when you have this relationship with the customer, they've decided they like your product, you want to make sure that they continue considering it essential and you don't want to interrupt that relationship. Why not take every available option to innovate the how you collect the money so that you're not jeopardizing the
Mhm.
product or the sales process, but you're serving the customer in a way that they want to be served and deserve to be served, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And it says a lot about how you feel about relationships, the way you treat people when it
Mhm.
comes to money, when it comes to payments. I
I'll
think
say.
it speaks volumes about you as your brand. And again, just unfortunately, too overlooked because there's this assumption that, well, it must be the customer's fault or there's something else that's broken. And so again, that knowledge and the measuring starts to inform the decisions that are made.
Darryl, great conversation. I can tell we're going to have many more of them on the same topic with even more insights to share. I look forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure and very passionate about this, as you can tell.
I
But
can tell. I
yeah,
can tell. Well,
excited.
it's passion directed to subscription commerce merchants who really need to understand the importance of the lifetime value of the customer and what they can do to really enhance what they already have today.
Yeah, and I just close off by saying, when we see merchants get this right, right? When they're selling better and when they're outthinking the marketplace and when they're delivering great value in their products and when they have a best strategy on how to manage how they collect the money, they really do get an unassailable lead. And I'm on a mission to give that opportunity to as many merchants as possible. That's why I'm so passionate about this, because I've seen firsthand how transformative it can really be to merchants when they get this right. So eventually everyone's going to have this. Eventually everyone's going to know it. But there is an incredible opportunity right now
Right.
for the first movers to get a massive competitive advantage and really, really protect their business.
On that note, Darryl, thanks so much for your time. Look forward to our future conversations. Thanks again.
Thank you.